Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Pep Talk. I'm your host, Christopher Poliasco, and today we are going to talk about hobbies and interests. Now, before we get into talking about hobbies and interests, if you haven't watched the last video where we introduced our likes and dislikes, I would recommend going here and making sure to watch that video. If you have watched that video, then let's keep going. So last class we talked about how to talk about what we like and what we don't like. Now today we are talking about hobbies and interests, which means things that we like to do. Things that we like to do or activities that we enjoy doing. Now, for the first thing we're going to do is talk about 3 different verbs that we use when we talk about hobbies or interests. Those verbs are do, go, and play. Now, the reason we want to talk about these are because for different interests, we usually use different verbs. So let's go over some verbs that we use when we talk about do. Now, because there are so many verbs that go with do, what I've done is down in the description, I have put a list of common interests and hobbies that go with do. So you can go ahead and pause the video and take a look at that list. But for now, we are going to go over just a couple of them so that you can practice saying these activities. Now, the first one I want to go over is do yoga. Do yoga. Next one, do Pilates. Do Pilates. Next one, do martial arts. Do martial arts. Martial arts are things like taekwondo, karate, and so on. Now for more vocabulary that go with do, you can go down to the description and check out the list. But for now, we are going to move on to go. Now when we are using a verb with go, one important thing to remember is that the verb ends with ing. So let me give you some examples. Go snowboarding. Go swimming. Go hiking. Go jogging. These are some examples of verbs that go with go. There are so many verbs that go with go, but the important rule to remember is that if it ends in ing, it probably goes with the word go. Now again, you can check in the description to find a list of common activities, interests, and hobbies that go with the word go. Now the final category that I want to talk about are words that go with play. Can you think of what kind of words would go with play? If you said sports, you would be correct. Play and sports usually go together. For example, play soccer, play tennis. You can also have stuff like play chess, right? But sometimes people get confused between play and go or play and do. For example, bowling. Some people say play bowling, but that would be incorrect. Because bowling ends in ing and we know our rule from before, we can use go bowling, right? So what I've done in the description is I've put a list again of different types of sports and activities that go along with the verb play. Now that we've quickly gone over some of the verbs that we use with go, do, and play, what I want to do now is go into the question that you would be answering to talk about your hobbies or interests. And there are 2 main questions I want to focus on. The first question is, what is your hobby? Or, what are your hobbies? Is for one hobby, are is for multiple hobbies, right? So what I want you to do is, for this, I'm only going to focus on is. So repeat after me. What is your hobby? Great job. Now let's move on to the next question people might ask you. And that question is, what do you like to do in your free time? Free time is any time that you don't have work, you don't have school, or you don't have something planned. So the question again, what do you like to do in your free time? Repeat after me. Ready? What do you like to do in your free time? Great job! So those are the two questions that we are going to focus on for this lesson, and we are going to focus on how to respond to both of those questions using go, do, or play. Now, when you are responding to what is your hobby, there is something interesting that happens with the vocabulary. Before we learned about go, do, and play, and those are used but in a different way. Now, for what is your hobby, you can just say, my hobby is, and then the activity. So let's practice this with a couple examples. First one, my hobby is hiking. Now, notice that hiking goes with go. But you don't have to say, my hobby is go hiking, because that would be incorrect. You can just say, my hobby is hiking. The next one, let's use one with do. For do, we are going to use Pilates. So, for example, my hobby is Pilates. Okay, now the final one is a little bit tricky because this is talking about sports. Now we know sports goes with play. So when we say my hobby is, we don't want to say my hobby is soccer, right? What we would rather say, which would sound better in conversation, is my hobby is playing soccer. So what you are going to do with all of the play verbs is, instead of saying play, change it to playing and then the sport. My hobby is playing soccer. Okay, so what I want you to do, I want you to practice responding to this question, the question, what is your hobby? And I want you to respond using your hobby. So first thing, go ahead, pause the video so you can think of your hobby or interest and how to say it using ing, right? So here we go. What is your hobby? Now we're going to try that one more time. I'm going to give you an example. Okay? What is your hobby? My hobby is playing soccer. Now it's your turn. What is your hobby? Excellent. If you want more practice with that, go ahead and pause the video, go back and listen. But for now, we are going to move on to the next part of the lesson. Now, the next question, which we talked about before, is what do you like to do in your free time? What do you like to do in your free time? Now, when you are responding to this, the way that you do that is I like to, and then the activity. But whereas in the last example, we took away go, do, and changed play, for this one, we are going to use those. So for example, what do you like to do in your free time? I like to go hiking. Notice that we keep go and we keep hiking as well. The next one, what do you like to do in your free time? I like to do Pilates. Or I like to do yoga. These are two examples of how to use that. Now the next one is with play. Play is just exactly the same. So, what do you like to do in your free time? I like to play soccer, or I like to play football. Okay? So, what I want you to do is practice this with me. First, we're going to practice the question. Here we go. The question. What do you like to do in your free time? Ready? Go. Excellent. Now we're going to practice the response. I'm going to use soccer just for my response. So, I like to play soccer. Excellent. Now for this next one, I want you to pause the video, think of what you like to do, what your hobby or interest is, and then I'm going to ask you what you like to do in your free time, and you're going to respond with your hobby or interest. Okay? All right, so let's get started. What I want you to do is respond to the question that I ask you. Here we go. What do you like to do in your free time? Excellent. What is your hobby? If you made the change, then you did a great job. If not, it would be good to go back and practice again. Now I'm going to do this one more time. I want you to change your hobby or interest. Here we go. 2 questions, 2 different answers. First one, what is your hobby? Great. Next one, what do you like to do in your free time? Perfect. Now, since this lesson is very dependent, meaning you need to know a lot of different verbs, what I want you to do is practice on your own using the verbs that are down in the description. Now, even if they aren't the hobbies or interests you like, it is still good practice for you to try with each of these so you become familiar with the sentences, my hobby is, and then the activity, and I like to go, I like to do, or I like to play an activity, right? So that's all for this lesson today, and I want you to make sure and practice. If you need more practice, it's best to go back to the beginning of the video and go ahead and re-listen to the lesson and practice the repeat after me's. But for now, what I want you to do is if you've made it this far, I want you to go into the comments. I want you to respond with 2 of your hobbies. And I want you to write in 2 different sentences. The first one is, my hobby is, and then your answer. The second one is, I like to, and then your answer. Also, now if you've made it to this point through all of my lessons, you have learned how to say hello to someone, how to say goodbye to someone, how to introduce yourself and talk about basic information, how to say what you like and dislike, and now you've learned how to talk about your hobbies and your interests. This is the foundation of making a complete basic conversation, and we're going to keep building on that as the course goes on and on. So, what you need to do is make sure that you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, so that more people can find this channel and more people can join us on our language journey. For now, I want to say thank you, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.